So listen, everybody, welcome to the BE Modern Man Black Enterprise, BE Modern Man Blab Chat. And today, for National Mentoring Month, we're talking about mentoring and mentorship. And thanks for all of you who signed on so far, but you couldn't have a better panel of people. I'm going to let them tell you a little bit about themselves, even though I know a little bit about all of them. Jay Barnett, King Jay, is a real powerful, inspirational transformer of lives, particularly of young people, does programs in schools and across the country, and really is about teaching our young people that there are kings and queens. And he doesn't stop at young people. He helps us all to recognize that we're kings and queens, and what does that mean? A powerful mentor, and I will say a powerful mentee as well. Next, we have Mike Muse. He's the CEO of Muse Recordings. Yep, say hi, Mike. He's also the Small Business Administration's My Brother's Keepers, a millennial entrepreneur. You're going to have to tell us a little bit about what that means. Yes, and so it's great to have Mike on. And then Lincoln Steffens, who's a one-of-a-kind brother. All these brothers are one-of-a-kind brothers, but Lincoln is very unique. First of all, if you watch the movie Boomerang and you remember the character Eddie Murphy played, and it was a fictional character that reflected a real-life reality that most people didn't believe. And it was about Black people in the advertising industry playing leadership roles in the advertising industry. And Lincoln is the founder of the Marcus Graham Project, named for the Eddie Murphy character, but really championing, mentoring, grooming, challenging African Americans and other people of color who want to succeed in the advertising industry. Again, I know a lot about them because I've crossed paths with them professionally and personally. But listen, welcome all you brothers aboard, and welcome to everybody who's going to listen to you today.
Thank you for having us, man.
We'll start with Lincoln first, and then we go to Mike and go to Jay. Why don't you do kind of a little opening about where you're coming at this topic of mentorship and mentoring, and both of you, or all of you, have been on both sides of that coin. But why don't we set the tone by talking about, where you're coming at this discussion, and start with Lincoln.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm coming from it from a person that has seen mentorship from birth. I'm wearing this T-shirt today from my mom's high school, which was Ralph Bunche Colored High School in Crockett, Texas. Where my grandfather was a teacher and a professor, and he mentored. I just remember my family always talking about how much he mentored other young men. And so growing up with that notion, I've always had the thought of making sure, even in my own peer group, to be able to be a mentor and be willing to be mentored. So having done both, thinking about how we do that in our industry, in advertising and media, where there are individuals that are looking to break in, that need more mentors to help guide them along and help avoid some of the pitfalls that we might make, and help them and challenge them to success. That's kind of where I'm coming from the perspective of having been a mentor, being a mentor, and encouraging others to do the same.
Mike, that's great. That's great, Lincoln. Mike, what's your take on this?
Yeah, man, I have got to give extreme thanks and gratitude to my mentor I've had since my senior year in high school. His name is Michael Guthrie, and he has been with me from the beginning to the end. And he's one of those individuals where he stuck by me even when I didn't believe in myself. And he even stuck by me when I actually ran from him because I thought he would be disappointed that I no longer was interested in pursuing engineering, that I decided to go into the entertainment and media field. And I just didn't have the heart to really face him, to tell him that the scholarship that his company gave me, the scholarship that the organization that he was a president of gave me, this engineering scholarship, I didn't want him to think that it was for naught. That it was a waste of his money. And so I was actually afraid to tell him the truth. And so I avoided him for about 3 to 4 to 5 years, actually.
Oh, wow.
I really got enough courage and strength to call him up. Something just dropped in my spirit. And I said, I got to reach out to Mike, right? It's a great time. I feel like I can get some really needed advice from him. And Alfred, no lie, I called him. And the first thing he said was, "Where have you been?" He said, "Me and my wife been looking for you for all these years. Where did you go? And so I told him my reservations for him. And he said, that was the furthest thing that you could have done. He said, are you happy? I said, I am. And he says, all that matters. And he began just to welcome me back with open arms. And it was in that moment that I realized the value of a real mentor, right? A real mentor is someone who allows you to ebb and flow, right? And someone who allows you to find yourself. And it's as a mentee, it was my responsibility to be vulnerable enough for him to do what he needed to do for me. And ever since we've connected, it's been life changing. And I think sometimes the mishap that we have as our mentors is that sometimes we peg them into a box or into a corner and not allowing them to add breath to our life and to meet us exactly kind of where we are. And to give them the reasonable doubt that they would be amenable to that. And so it's through those lessons through Mike Guthrie that's allowed me to even be a better mentor for myself, but not in the traditional sense of mentor, right? Like I come from a different perspective of mentorship that you don't necessarily have to do the weekly coffee meetings or the weekly or the monthly lunches, right? Just being present in someone's life. And then when you connect with them, feed into them at that moment. And sometimes
that's my philosophy as well.
So that's kind of where I fit in on the side as a mentee for Mike Guthrie. And then the other side is I give exposure and nuggets over time to individuals that I come across and meet.
That's great, Mike. Let me just say before I bring Jay in, for those of you who are not familiar with the BE Modern Man campaign that was launched last year, this is a multi-platform, multimedia effort to showcase the truth about men of color, which is not necessarily what's exposed in mainstream media on a regular basis. So it's a celebration of the accomplishments, the achievements, the passions, the pursuits. Or the tagline for BE Modern Man is "Extraordinary is our normal." That this is what the reality of what it means to be a man of color in America for us. So if you follow, you can go to BE Modern Man at blackenterprise.com, or you can follow BE Modern Man on Twitter and across other social media platforms to learn more. And Jay Barnett was one of the original ambassadors when we launched BE Modern Man last year, and it's flown the flag well since then. So Jay, you come at this obviously from a mentee and mentor standpoint, and it's part of your passion and the core of your life's pursuit. So talk about your approach to this.
My approach to this is as a mentor. I mentor young people. I started off mentoring athletes, especially after my stint from the NFL. So I saw a lot of guys that they lacked a lot of skills that it took to really be a man off the field. And so, of course, myself always having that desire and having that urge to really learn more about who I was and learn more about, what does it take to really become a man? Because so many times, so many young men are told to be a man, but no one really knows how to be a man. And so that started my pathway to mentoring athletes, which led into dealing with teenagers, because I realized that who I was as a young man had a lot to do with what happened in my adolescent and teenage years, and just didn't have the proper guidance and the proper mentorship. And so I took on that responsibility, and I actually broke down and created an acronym for the word mentor. It's men taking on responsibility. And so I wanted to take on that responsibility to give back and to really give these young people some tools that they can utilize and some key essentials that they can really use to become and to transition in that next phase. But as a mentee, I want to say probably almost 2 years ago, I had the opportunity to meet Albert, and he gave me 15 minutes, and he asked me, what can I do for you? And I would never forget that conversation. And I began to talk with him about what I wanted to do and what I was doing, because I believe before providing anyone with any information, I believe laying the groundwork. That way, when you bring it to them, you have something to stand on. And I wanted to show that I'd already written one book, and he took the book, and I think it took about 4 or 5 months before he actually read it. But what I noticed in Alfred is that he saw something that I couldn't see, and I think a lot of times that so we as men, we need someone to see what we don't see.
Yes.
that I knew that I had potential, but I didn't know how to tap into that potential. I didn't really know how to challenge myself outside of who I was. And as a young man in today's society and transitioning out of football, I wanted to be more than just an athlete. And so I'm so grateful on the mentee side. And as you said, Mike, the non-traditional side of mentor, because I don't talk to Alfred every week. There's no weekly coffee meetings or even sometime maybe once a month. But when we do talk, man, I mean, it's a powerful and life-changing and life-altering conversation. And I just thank him for challenging me to be to think outside of myself. And I think for most of us to continue to grow as men, we got to be challenged to think and to grow outside of ourselves. So as a mentee, I'm very grateful because as a young man, I mean, I have really embraced all of the knowledge, all of the nuggets. I don't know if anyone saw beginning of the month of January, like he don't realize like I'm a sponge. Like I soak up everything.
I think I realize it now.
Yeah, I soak up quotes. I mean, everything, man. But that's how I played the game of football. I mean, as you can see, how I finished college was a guy who came into my life maybe a year, a pastor. And after that, he was gone. But he pushed me to not quit when my mother was going through a very difficult time. And I didn't quit. And I ended up, my jersey was retired this year. And I was the first player, the first player to graduate from this predominantly white university in 4 years. So I truly understand the value of being mentor, man. So I'm very grateful for it.
So let me throw it out a little bit. You know, I'm an active mentor in part because I missed mentorship in my own life. But I'm also someone, as Jay will tell you, who challenges his mentees. One of the things I want you to talk about is the shortage or the perceived shortage of people willing to mentor. And one of my kind of rules for who I choose to mentor is they have to be mentoring someone else, because you can't find mentors if you don't mentor. Because that's where the shortage comes from. So what are some of the things that you look for in the people you choose to mentor? As we're in National Mentoring Month, and you know everybody wants a mentor, but not everybody seems to want to be one. What do you look for in the kinds of people? What are the things that attract you to a potential mentee? And let me start with Lincoln.
I think it's mostly mutual, right? I think if you're able to be coachable, if you are you able to have an open mind towards wanting to be challenged and to be pushed, right? You know, I always tell some of my mentees that there are a few mentors that I have that if they were to call me right now, well, I wouldn't answer the phone, but if they were to call me, I might not want to pick up the phone because I know for a fact that they are about to push me. We're about to be on the phone for an hour. We're going to be, you know, they're going to be saying, you know, okay, kudos on a few of the things I've seen you doing, but let's talk about the things you're not doing right. I look for people that are able to be in that same position because I'm gonna do that. If you ask me to look at your resume, be prepared for it to come back with the red markups, because and as well, I also look for individuals that are respectful enough of my time to show up on time for different things, as well as spend the time and add value also into my own life, right?
Yes.
So that it's reciprocal.
So many people miss that idea that it should be reciprocal. You know, I said in a column that I wrote for Black Enterprise about mentorship that it's very easy for a mentor to feel like a booty call.
Right.
You only hear from this person. It's an emergency. They need you right away. They need you to make that call. They need you to make that referral. And then once they get what they need from you, they disappear. And they don't see themselves as adding value to the lives of the mentor, the person mentoring them. But Mike, do you want to jump in on that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm still laughing at mentorship as a booty call. I think that's the line of the chat. Only you, Al. But I think I was kind of just pick up where both you and Lincoln left off, in particular where Lincoln mentioned that as being coachable. For me, over the years, you kind of learn the value of your time, as well as the value of the mentee's time. And I've run into situations where I've actually wanted it more than they did. I actually wanted a better life for the person I was helping to serve more than they actually did. And so I found myself having to work so much more harder than them. And so as a result, I've learned, but I only learned by actually doing. And so now I look for those identical ways of, as I mentioned, in terms of who is coachable. And so for me, that's one of the values that I kind of look for. Then I'd ask them basically a series of basic questions that lets me gauge where they are in their life. And they don't have to be in terms of in college. They don't have to be the 4.0 scholar. I actually look for those who are on the cusp, right? Who are aware that there's something else out there, may not know how to get there. And for me, that is my sweet spot, because I believe we have so many people who are so interested in helping those who are already on their way, right? And so I feel my ministry comes into place for those who are on the cusp, who want something different, want something more, may not know how to get there, but is looking for that one word, that one advice, that one validating voice that say that they matter to carry them over the top. And so that's kind of my sweet spot.
Well, you know, one of the things I think of some of my best mentees, I've had a rule since I graduated from college that I was a promise I made to myself that I would have an open door policy for all high school and college students, that if I spoke at a school or that if they called me and made an appointment, I'd meet them. And early in my career, all of my peers were like, how do you make time to do all of that? And I would say, well, usually 1 in 100 takes you up on it. You know, and so you would think I would be flooded, but the truth is that a lot of people don't take you up on it, and half the battle is just showing up. So usually the mentee or the person that shows up usually is ready, because I remember one young lady, a Hispanic woman, who took her train for the first time in her life from Trenton to New York City because she was like, I'm going to make this appointment. And that kind of initiative helps to identify those who are willing to do, not just willing to take. Before I bring Jay in again, I do want to make note of today is the 70th birthday, or is being celebrated today, of Susan L. Taylor, who many people know as the editor emeritus of Essence, but also is founder of the National Cares mentoring movement. And so we didn't plan it this way. We didn't know her birthday was today when we set up this blab, but absolutely a happy birthday to Queen Susan Taylor, who is obviously a major champion on the mentoring front for us as the founder of Cares Mentoring. So Jay, you know, what are some of the things that you expect of a mentee that makes the relationship really a productive relationship?
I would have to kind of piggyback off what Lincoln said, especially being an athlete, is that they're coachable. Yes. That they're coachable, that they're open, and then two, that they're very attentive to and they give attention to details. Because if you notice, what a mentor really does is help give you a strategy and help give you a plan. And so really, in order for any plan to work, you have to be open to learn, how do you execute? What is the formula? And how does the equation work? And so what I look for is, especially in young people, is that they're very open to being receptive of the information that's going to be provided. And then two, I want to know, are they willing to be uncomfortable? Because any great mentor should make you feel uncomfortable. And so, you know, and once again, and I will have to bring Alfred in on this, is even after the first book, you know, his challenge to me, okay, like, what are you doing next? How are you following up with this? What other tools are you going to provide? You know, and so, and I could have just, you know, said, hey, I'm going to stop here, but that challenge challenged me to, you know, to write another book and to write another one and continue to provide, you know, these tools of literacy for these young people, because if you write it, they will read it, and if it's something that they could that would relate to them. So I think being coachable, giving attention to details, and be willing to be uncomfortable. And if they're willing to be uncomfortable, because when you're uncomfortable, that's when you're stretching, and that's what a real mentor do. They help stretch you to pull all of the great things that they see in you out of you.
So we kind of covered that. We ask a lot of mentees. We cover the benefits of us being mentored by others. But mentorship, as Mike said, is a lot of work. And I always tell people that we all have to mentor, but we don't have to mentor you. That we get to pick and choose our mentees, just as our mentees get to pick and choose their role models. But when considering all the other things that you could be doing with your day, your business responsibilities, your personal responsibilities, your family responsibilities. Lincoln's got a new beautiful family. Go on, boy. Do it, bro. There's a lot of people who are in our shoes who say, I don't have time to mentor. I'm not really down for that. I don't have time for it. So what is your best case for convincing them that not only is it worth doing from a quote unquote altruistic standpoint, but there's benefits to you as the mentor? Why do you do it, and what do you get out of it? And let's start with Lincoln.
I mean, I would just say, and I have come across friends that feel like they don't have enough time. Taking a step back for a second, we get the name mentor from Greek Odyssey.
Yes,
from the Odyssey, and the mentor, the man, in his old age, was asked to be in charge of Odysseus' son, as well as his palace. So he's been given the responsibility not over a person, but over his house and his belongings. And so I think that, especially if you recognize that you are called to be a leader, that you cannot be an effective leader unless you're an effective servant. Mm-hmm. So mentorship is really servanthood, is really being able to take a step back and say, I need to be able to pour into something else besides myself or besides my family, because we need each other in this world to build a greater world. So if you are only taking into responsibility yourself and the things that you have around you, you really haven't. You're doing the world and yourself a disservice. I don't think that you're going to be as successful as a business person or an entrepreneur or even as a father. Like I feel like in the 6 months that I have been a dad, if I had not mentored, I think I wouldn't have the patience that I am trying to have as a father. So that's what I'd say.
Well, if I could add to that, I tell people, if you're doing it with the right spirit, what you're doing is creating a network of allies. So I always tell people, mentorship seems very linear and hierarchical, but what you end up having, and I can speak from personal experience, is really a nice network of people who are just helping each other out, pushing each other along, challenging each other. Many of my mentees are much more expert in areas that I'm not expert in. And I can call them and say, I don't know about this. Help me to figure this out. And it grows quickly from being a kind of a hierarchical, I'm over you type of relationship, and more to, hey, we're all in this together. Let's help each other to succeed type of relationship. I can speak for myself. My network of mentees, I'm always hashtagging my mentees are better than yours, are people who help me and teach me as much as I teach them. Would you agree with that, Mike?
I do. Your hashtag is your mentees are better than others mentees. My hashtag I love is iron sharpens iron. And I'm a big believer that, we make each other better as a collective. And I believe that when we have a great exchange or great discourse, it only makes us better. I also am a big believer of the notion you're not really mastering a subject unless you're able to tutor. right? And when you're able to tutor, that's when you know you've mastered the subject. And so for me, by giving back and speaking life into my mentee, it allows me to know that I'm trying my best to master this subject of life. Now, I won't be perfect, but I'm happy to give all that I have. I'm happy to give all my mistakes, all my lessons learned, to be vulnerable to that individual so that they can then become much better than I am at all times. One of my mentees I mentor right now, his name is Dexter Mason, and I call him my little brother. And I'm always imparting Dexter that I want you to be better than me. I think as a mentor, that's my responsibility, to be that vulnerable and to be that humble, to say, I want to speak so much into you that you surpass me twice as much as I am at the age that I am. And my only requirement is you do the exact same thing to another individual. I'm of the mindset that it is of quality and not quantity, because I'm one of those individuals who is really concerned about time. And so sometimes the time thing and the commitment actually makes me more hesitant to be a mentor. And so it's with that I've kind of developed like kind of what works for me. And so I've been being a mentor ever since college. What I decided to do was mentor this incoming freshman as I was a junior. And again, I told him which teachers to take, which organizations to join, when to be president of said organizations, when to go out for the internships. And then I said, only thing I ask you, Brian, is that you then grab a freshman when you're a junior and you do the same. And Alfred, has been amazing that lineage actually happened for about 4 or 5 generations of University of Michigan graduates, all from that moment, right? But it's all the took and pass it down. Sometimes we're this notion that we have to save everybody. For me and my lifestyle, I'm just not able to do that, right? So I love that notion of saying no so that your yeses have meaning, right? So that when you do speak into a life, it's very valuable, but also so that your spirit is charged, right? Like I can't give everything to 100 men in a week. It's just not doable for me. It's not realistic. So what I do is I take those ones who are on the cusp. I take those ones who are coachable, the word of the day, and who has the ability to be more and to want more, right? And I give them that one-on-one. But then what I do is I leverage all the platforms that the gentlemen and we all that have been very blessed and privileged to be on, whether it's editors of magazines, whether it's football players, whether it's owning agencies and marketings, right? We can then take all that knowledge and spread it to the masses at one time, right? And especially during social media. So leverage whatever platforms you have to speak to the masses and speak nuggets, right? But then take that time to find that one to invest that time in. And for me, that's just what's made me comfortable, because sometimes, you know, I just have that notion, I'm not Superman, right? Like I really can't save it all. And that's helped me remove that guilt I've had when I do miss that coffee or I have missed that lunch, right? And so, because being a mentor isn't easy. There is a guilt that comes with it when you're not giving your all and you feel bad for that, right? And so for me, that's just how I see mentorship, and that's how I see being effective. And
I don't even think you should feel bad. I mean, I think that's effective mentoring. A lot of the people that I mentor, first of all, here's my example of a Powerball mentorship experience. When somebody comes to me for mentorship, and I'm not really the right one for a lot of reasons, but my network of people is so broad that I can match them to the right one, and then they still become part of our whole mentorship mentee relationship situation. I mean, in fact, Jay, how I came across Jay is one of my dear brothers, Shelton Mercer, was like, this brother's going to come talk to you. You need to meet him. He's going to want to talk to you. And he told me about Jay, and he told me to look out for him. And so that was a situation where I'm not always the right person. Always when people ask me for mentorship, I ask them, what do you really need? Because one of the tough questions you have to ask potential mentees is, do you want me to be your mentor because you want what I have, or do you want what I know?
Wow.
A lot of people is like, I want what you got. And
wait. Where do I send in the donation for that one? I need to decide on that one.
Up to you with that one, Alfred.
Your real mentees want to know what you know, and as Jay says, they want to know your story. They want to learn your lessons. In fact, one of my best mentees, who's a successful professional in her own right. Now Sakina Spruill, she's a personal financial journalist. Many of you know her. She spent a part of her career at Black Enterprise, and she came behind me at Rutgers, similar to your experience, Mike, with your alma mater. She was following me and shadowing me before I even knew she existed, because she wanted my experiences.
Wow.
By the time I met her, I thought me being her mentor was my idea, but she had already had that kind of set up. But she was legitimately, genuinely interested in the path that I walked, and tried to pull those lessons long before she met me. So she, with somebody like Jay, I mean, to me, a serious mentor to you has read your books. If they know that you wrote a book and they want you to mentor them, they've read your books before they meet you, because their desire for what you know is sincere, not just what you have and who you are.
Right.
So, now, Jay, you work with a lot of people who are, especially young people who are in need and often don't know what they need, and you don't always have the luxury of that. Maybe me and Mike do, of picking and choosing who we'd like to mentor. You take in a lot of people who are in a need in the programs that you do. How does that approach go? I mean, like I said, me and Mike, we're like, you got to battle with guilt about what you can and can't do. You're in a different space because you committed to this idea that you're going to be there for whatever young person needs you. How do you manage that, but still maintain your own energy, maintain your own goals, and don't get too sucked into the needs of others?
Right. The approach that I take to it is approach that I stand by, because oftentimes I started mentoring girls about 4 years ago, and some that was very unusual, that had never been done by a male, and created this program and this curriculum. And so it was after one day, this young lady asked me, she says, "Mr. J, does it bother you that you won't change everybody?" And I said, "No, it doesn't." I said, because how I look at it is that I do for one for what I wish that I can do for all. So many times we have that concept that, well, if I can't do it for all of them, I'm not going to do it for the one. But, and I flipped and said, I do for one of you what I wish that I can do for all, because I understand the dynamics that we're working in. And so it's not a one-on-one situation. Most of the time I'm working with groups of 15 or 20, whether it's girls or whether it's boys. And so my approach all the time is to provide them with effective tools that they can use outside. And what I know from mentoring young people is that they love transparency. And go back to what you said, Alfred, is that most of the time is I place a lot of value on giving them what I didn't know and what I learned. Because what the revelation that I had is even with my relationship with my father, because I wanted that mentorship. I've always wanted to have a guidance of a man, because for me, I knew that the only way the son becomes is that the dad has to give him the tools that he needs. So my revelation was, in order for me to become the man that he wasn't, I have to learn what he didn't know. And so that's obtaining the wisdom. And you can take that as back as far as Solomon, because for me, even meeting you, I wanted to know, like, what is it that you have inside of here that I need? And it's go back to Solomon's conversation with God. He was like, I don't want the money. I want the wisdom. The wisdom would teach me how to get everything else.
Yes.
And so, and wisdom is something that you can't pay for. And so, and I teach these young men because they're all, want to know, like, how did I make it outside of football? How was I able to find who I was outside of it? And I'm open with them to say, listen, man, a lot of us, we don't have a clue. We've just been told to go and become. But in the human race and in the human species, we are the only ones that we do not become instinctively. A cub is going to become a bear, no matter what, instinctively. But a boy can't become a man until he's shown and he's taught that. So the value of the mentorship is to become. And so that's the approach that I take, even for the young ladies, is that someone, which is very, not common commentary to have a man mentoring young girls. But the approach that I took is that I understand that most of them are seeking validation from a male. They don't have a father figure. So how can I create something to help them to see their value beyond where they are? And that's really what mentoring really is bringing in that value that you don't understand.
I wish I could say I taught them all that, but I didn't. So, so Lincoln, in terms of your work with the Marcus Graham Project, and that's kind of professional mentorship and development as well as personal. What is it that brings you gratification, if you will, as you see the people coming through that program and what they're able to achieve, both within the advertising industry in general, that makes your mentorship, and that's more of a formal thing outside of your personal mentorship, worthwhile?
Yeah, I mean, I think a couple of things. I think the first thing that we recognized early on is that while we knew that mentorship was at the core of what our program does, but in one of the first years of our flagship program, our summer boot camp in Dallas, at the end of it, someone said, thank you. This has changed my life, as opposed to, thank you. You've helped me to find some connections to get a job. And so it made us have greater stewardship over what we're doing and thinking about that in a different way. And then even yesterday, someone from the group in a program we had in Chicago just said they learned more in 3 weeks than they learned in 4 years of college in our program. Wow. And so making sure, and part of that was because we put great mentors around them to guide them as they were learning and working on their project. And it goes back to what I think a couple of you have kind of mentioned, making sure that you put an army of allies in your circle, around them. There are people that, like Mike Zitelli, who's on here. He's been a mentor to our program, and it's the quality of the people that you also surround them with. Because I only have a certain personal capacity. Right. But who are the other people that we can invite into the circle, and then and trust them, yes. Right? Because when you're working, and I'm sure Jay can attest to this, when you're working with impressionable college students and recent college graduates, you have to make sure that you are trusting the people that you are bringing around them, because they're going to they have the potential to give great impact, or they have the potential to implode these individuals. Yes. Even potential. So you have to be a good steward of understanding who you're bringing around.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with that, even in terms of the choice of who to mentor and who not to mentor. I don't necessarily make a character judgment necessarily, but I do try to think about who is at a level where they can at least do no harm. That first do no harm rule, because you are bringing people into your circle, and I do send people to other people, and you want to know that they're at least not going to be harmed by who you refer them to. You guys are doing a great job of showing that mentorship is not just this linear thing, that it's a multi-dimensional, multi-connection form of networking and education and inspiration and support. So listen, as we wind down, we got about 20 minutes, a little less than 20 minutes to go. We can wrap up around 3:00. What would you say, particularly as we talk about the challenge of uplifting young Black men or Black men in general? What would you like to see in terms of mentorship as a real force of intervention to create more BE modern men and have more young men of color identify as and see what you guys have attained as possible for them? How do we show that, and what are the things that you do to help make that happen? Let me start with Mike and then work my way around. Mike?
Actually, that's a great question, Alfred. I'm really glad that you asked that. It kind of goes how you just said, that we just talked very in depth and with range, and we've shown that mentorship isn't this monolithic, linear, progressive this of how to give back to a community. I think how you do mentorship, Alfred, Jay, and Lincoln, we all have a unique approach to it, right? I think we have to take that same mindset when we begin to look at our Black boys. I think too often we try and pigeonhole them into what is this traditional brand of success. And we limit that to about 2 to 3 industries, right? Which is traditionally within the STEM categories, science, technology, engineering, and math. Kind of push them to be doctors or lawyers, or just in general businessmen. But we don't allow them to express who they are creatively. We don't allow them to accept who they are in terms of what their interests may be. We don't allow them the ability to explore art history if we like, because we as a community always are so big on practical careers, practical majors, outlooks that are very safe and secure. And then what we do is we don't meet them where they are. We meet them where we want them to be. And that's often not the right approach to take. We have to meet our Black boys where they are, say that that is acceptable, and then that is enough. And then let me show you or give you the tools, or Alfred, as you say, introduce you to somebody who can help take you on that path that you need to get there. And that your path may be non-traditional, but I accept it. I support you. I love on you. You matter. And I want to see you go across that finish line, just as my mentor did. I mean, I was geared towards this incredible engineering program. I did nuclear chemical research where I took like 3rd place nationally. I was positioned to be this great scientist, this great engineer. And then all of a sudden I wake up and I'm interested in music, right? Now, my mentor at the time could have took it a couple of ways. She could have rejected me like a lot of other prominent male figures in my circle of influence and friends did. And that made me feel some kind of way towards them. It made me have this really bitterness, this resentment towards them not accepting me. And then when Mike Guthrie said, "You are enough. As long as you're happy, I'm happy," that made me even want to go even harder to be in the position where I am talking to you fine gentlemen right now. It allowed me to give this platform where I'm able to give back, right? And to take that young boy who's want something non-traditional and grab them and say, you can do it. So I think it's time for our culture. I think it's time for older men and men who have influence of the now to reach back and grab these boys where they are and don't force our beliefs on them, right? And let them be. And so that's just really how I think the best way to grab our boys, because we are so wide ranging. We have various interests. We're into comic books. We're into rock music, right? Like we're into art and fashion, right? Like we're just not into these 4 specific things. And so we have to encourage
it's funny
that.
you said, because the whole BE Modern Man campaign, the goal is to show the breadth of that. Because you're right, there's a very narrow set of lanes for what is defined as a successful person or a successful Black person or successful Black men. And probably 80% of us fall outside of that little spotlight, and we're operating in the dark, because if you don't fit those buckets, then you don't get exposure. And of course, if we don't get that exposure, then people who might be inspired by us don't even see us to be exposed toward the same things. The other thing I would add to that is I tell people all the time, you can't judge and serve at the same time. You can't come at it judgmentally and say you're going to serve people. That's not just young people. That's in general. You got to pick one.
You got to pick one.
You're going to judge them, or you're going to serve them.
This church you need to open up real soon.
I know. I know, man.
Jay, why don't you dive in on that? What do you think we need to do better in terms of providing mentorship as a tool for young Black people and young Black men in particular?
Well, I think Mike said it best, meeting them where they are. And when you really understand servanthood and mentorship, and even when you talk, because what we all do is really ministry. And what ministry really is meeting the need of people and meeting people where they are. And so many times that I'm being 33 years old, and sometimes when I'm speaking to older men and they're asking me like, well, how do you deal with these young guys? I said, I think the first sign to really connect with these boys is respect, is to really respect where they are, how they see things. They see things differently. They don't see things with a closed mind as the generation of old. And as Mike said, these kids, they're very creative. This is a technical culture that we in. This is no longer the industrial age. And so we have to really be open to really meet them on all levels. But even the level that they're on is to be able to provide them with the intangibles. That's what a lot of these young boys are missing. It's the intangibles.
Yes.
And it starts with one simple word, is what Alfred taught me. And I will be honest to say this, is that it took me 30 some years to understand that I didn't really understand what self-love was. And a lot of these young boys don't understand what is self-love. That don't even come in the same sentence. To understand that you are worthy, you are more than enough. You do deserve that. You do deserve to have the best life. And to really get them to see, because most of them, they're not exposed, they have limited resources, but how do I get you to see beyond the hood? How do I get you to see beyond your brokenness or your poverty? And how do I get them to build a wealthy mindset, and a mindset of not just living for enough or just enough, but living to where you can have more than enough? And that takes challenging their mindset and challenge their thinking. And the one thing I can say about these young people is they want to be challenged. They don't want to be wondering, but they don't have anybody. And so what happened is that, okay, if I see what they're doing on Instagram or BT or any of these, any music or anything, they quickly adopt to that, because as young men, we all know we all want to be part of something. That's why sports and gangs and all those different things, whether it's negative or positive, they attract a lot of these young boys because they want to feel a part of something. And so it's important that we show these young boys self-love. And a lot of them, man, they don't hear a man tell them, I love you, or a man tell them, hey, man, I'm pulling for you. I want you to make it. And as I tell my young men when I'm mentoring, I said, listen, man, I can't die with all of this stuff, man. So I got to give it to you.
Yep.
And I want you to give it to somebody else, man. And so I think as Alfred told me, and I mean, he don't realize what he's done for me. And I added that chapter in my new book for teenage boys. Self-love is everything, man. And men, we preach it a lot to women, but I don't think we, elaborated on enough for young men.
I agree. So speaking of generations, I see you, Lincoln. I see you bringing in the new generation. Why don't you weigh in on what you'd like to see happen, what you think we need to be doing?
And I weigh in on that because it occurred to me when Mike was talking and he first separated, the conversation and said what we need to do with boys is when my son was first born, I said, hey there, little man. Hey there, little man. And my wife said, don't forget that he's just a boy. And I think that we try to make boys men much faster than they are. Technically, you're not even fit. Your brain has not even really fully developed where you have all faculties of reasoning and logic and everything until you're 25, 26.
Yes.
Right? But we treat 13-year-olds and we talk about it. So it's in our language, hey, young man. And sometimes, we can agree or disagree on the nomenclature of what we call, but let's not forget that a 16-year-old is still a boy. 21-year-olds, when we were in college and, we were in our fraternity, we were still boys, right? So you have boys that are by themselves making man-sized decisions.
Yes.
And we have to be able to separate those two very different responsibilities and equip each other with where you are on that level. There are boys that have taken on the responsibilities in households as men, but let's not forget that they're still boys. And so I think that, I think that's one of the greatest challenges is that we've for so long throughout our, you can say throughout the 400 years that we've been vacationing here in America, that we have been treated and we've treated each other as men when we were really boys. And I think we need to negotiate those two things.
you guys hit between you guys, all three of you hit on in my other life, and Jay knows about this. My wife, Zara Green, and I have something called the Grown Zone. And one of the key principles of the Grown Zone is about self-love and personal growth. And we talk about the critical difference between an adult male and a grown man.
Yes.
And we place a high priority on adult maleness without recognizing the developmental challenges and developmental goals that helps you graduate to grown, fully realized, self-loving, contributing manhood. And it's not just with black men. There's depending on which people you talk to, there's some certain infantilization of men in general, at least in America, where the man is not necessarily expected to be, but still responsible. But the woman is supposed to be responsible. Kind of that Fred Flintstone, Wilma Flintstone phenomenon. The husband's always a bit of a kind of clown, and the wife is the sensible one holding everything together. But it's just interesting that when we talk about that those threads have kind of come together in this conversation. Listen, our hour is almost up. Let me first say thank you to everybody. I see you guys who have joined in and tweeted and told all your followers about this chat. This is the first of what will become regular BE Modern Man Blab chats, where we bring brothers together around a variety of topics to talk about the issues that matter, not only to us, but matter to everyone. Please, thank you, Jay, Lincoln, Mike. This is fantastic. It's powerful. And we really appreciate you, not just for what you share during this hour, but what you do in your day-to-day lives, professionally, as fathers, as brothers, as sons, as leaders, as business people. You're doing some great things. And our goal with Black Enterprise BE Modern Man is to take the lampshade off and let your light shine. And so we want you to continue to do what you do. We want to be of support to you. Sometimes that's just a phone call in the middle of the night to just tell you you're not crazy, or you are, but it's all right. And we're going to keep moving this forward. Thank you to my team at Black Enterprise. This is the first Blab chat I've hosted. I couldn't have done it without you, but it won't be the last. And please follow BE Modern Man on Twitter. You can get to it at blackenterprise.com, BE Modern Man, and support and help us grow this movement to really tell the truth about BE Modern Men. Extraordinary is our normal. That's just how we roll. So listen, without further ado, thank you all, and keep it moving, y'all.
Thank you for having me.
Bye-bye.
Bye.